I'm Stuart McConey. Join me this weekend for a conversation with Blur on the release of the forthcoming Best Of. Blur's career revisited, 11 years, 18 great singles. They'll be talking about it with me, Stuart McConey, this weekend. I'm Stuart McConey. Join me this weekend for a conversation with Blur on the release of the forthcoming Best Of. Blur's career revisited, 11 years, 18 great singles. They'll be talking about it with me, Stuart McConey, this weekend. Hello, I'm Stuart McConey, and tomorrow I'll be talking to the four members of Blur about their new Best Of. 11 years in the business, 18 fantastic singles. They'll be looking back over the highlights of that career. Join me tomorrow. Hello, I'm Stuart McConey, and tomorrow I'll be talking to the four members of Blur about their new Best Of. 11 years in the business, 18 fantastic singles. They'll be looking back over the highlights of that career. Join me tomorrow. I'm Stuart McConey, and later today you can join me and the four members of Blur looking back over their career on the release of their new Best Of album. 11 years, 18 singles, Blur in conversation later today. I'm Stuart McConey, and later today you can join me and the four members of Blur looking back over their career on the release of their new Best Of album. 11 years, 18 singles, Blur in conversation later today. I'm Stuart McConey, and over the next hour I'll be talking to Blur about their new Best Of album. 11 years in the business, 18 great singles. Let's start with one of them, Blur and Girls and Boys. Girls and Boys is maybe, arguably, the kind of structurally, in terms of your career, the biggest record here. Is that fair enough to say?
Well, I guess it was a kind of marketing man's dream, really, because it kind of hit all the groups that record companies are looking to appeal to. You know, it worked. It worked on a lot of levels. Very simple. You know, Food Records have been trying to get us to put that drum beat on everything we do.
But it was a very out there thing for a band in your position to have done at that time, wasn't it?
That's when we fully developed the yin and yang that is Coxon and James. I think. Where our kind of contrariness to each other musically kind of reached. You know, it was nothing at all personal. Actually, it's one of Blur's strengths, I think.
Yeah.
That he was doing his funk, and I was completely trying to be contrary to his funk. He was wanting to be in Jan Jan, I was wanting to be in Gang of Four.
Yeah.
So we were that's how it, and it does sound a bit like Gang of Four.
It sounds like Duran Duran playing a Gang of Four song.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, yeah.
Yeah.
And there should be more.
It sort of works. I mean, that's sort of when it kind of the first time that sort of thing came about. Really, we sort of knew that it was kind of interesting. If we do something that seems quite new to us, I think we're very unsure a lot of the times to actually what we've created and what it means. It takes us a while, or takes other people's reactions to it, to make us understand that maybe we've done something in a little way revolutionary for ourselves.
And Dave, did you think, oh great, what am I going to do on this? It's got a lot of mechanised drumming on it.
That was a bonus, really. you know, got to just play the cymbals. Those kind of tracks, it's odd because you can just listen to them like music rather than have to get completely emotionally entangled in them and never be able to hear them properly again.
Yeah.
So all there is a couple of cymbals on there from me, but I can hear it like a non-member of Blur.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, and watching Graham and Damon on stage doing acoustic gigs are some of the best things to do when you're in Blur, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know...
You get to see what it's like for everyone else.
You do. It's cool, you know. It's cool not being on your records.
Weren't you in the shouty bit?
I was, yeah, I suppose I am actually. I'm on it more than I think, actually, aren't I? There's some cymbals and some shouting. That's probably my vocal debut, though, probably.
11 years, 18 singles. Is this a bit like when you get Lifetime Achievement Oscars? Is it that kind of vibe? You sort of, looking back sagely at your lifetime.
I feel like status quo.
Do you?
Self-inflicted kind of award, isn't it? Or a contractually self-inflicted award.
But one that you're happy with. You feel you've reached a time in your career where this is a nice thing.
I think we've reached a time in our career where we can no longer avoid it.
Really?
Yeah, more than actually really want to do it, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
is
well,
that
CDs aren't long. We wanted to put more on. You can only get 72 minutes of music on a CD, we found out. But we've made 20, how many singles? 23, 24?
No.
It's kind of the singles box set. How does it differ from that? Because when you had the singles box set out, that must have prompted you to think back, oh, what a long, strange trip it's been, kind of thing. Does it feel different than that, though?
Yeah, I mean, box sets are kind of odd, aren't they? And they're not sort of... I don't know who buys them, really. I've got a few box sets.
Yeah.
It's more like a manicure set. Manicure case.
Yeah.
Box set.
Do you take a bit of pride in the fact that you've got to hear? I mean, it must be a nice feeling, you know. It's almost the kind of stamp in some ways of a proper group. If you get to this stage, then you're not a fly-by-night operation, are you?
But EMI did some market research, which was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Really quite brutal. But so they just sort of did some investigations as to what people's idea of the ultimate Blur album would be. And this is directly as a result of that, really. That's
interesting, though, isn't it? Was it a salutary experience, realising that's how other people view you?
Yeah. It was strange. Because they were all the ones that sort of make me squirm. That they like.
We always sound tougher than I remember. And particularly the first album. It was really quite hard.
Your first real big break was There's No Other Way. I mean, how do you look back at that record now?
That made us think that we had to make groovy little nuggets, yeah.
Yeah. It is a groovy little nugget, isn't it?
It's funny, sort of looking back over. I mean, obviously that most of the tracks on a best of are going to be singles because they're what people are familiar with. I mean, I think so. All I listen to is singles. I very rarely listen to albums.
That's what I mean about There's No Other Way. I know that now you feel that represents a completely different band, but it does its job pretty brilliantly, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're proud of each and every one of these songs. I know I am totally. There's No Other Way. It's just. I mean, that was the first time we really got it right. Something clicked into place. It was the first thing we did with Stephen Street, who kind of walked in out of the blue at a point when things could have gone badly wrong. Really, we'd done one single that had got to sort of just miss the charts, and we'd gone back in with that producer to make another record, and it just hadn't worked at all. And then Stephen appeared with his funky dotted drum loops.
There's No Other Way by Blur. We'll hear more from Blur after this. Song 2 was a big record for you, obviously. Let's talk about that for a moment.
It's always difficult to talk about that one because I really can't remember exactly,
It was over with so quickly.
It was over with so quickly, and I didn't sort of ever really finish the lyrics. It had that I just went with how I did it first time, I slightly adapted it, but not really, and it's always something I fight against, you know, and I'm really happy sometimes when I manage to have the confidence to just let it go and leave it at that level, because of, you know, I think I just find it a very exciting way of working when you don't really know what you're saying. It's much more primal in that, obviously, and that is a very I don't know. That song just keeps going and going and going.
Because that is a recent. Would you agree with that? That's a recent landmark.
It was. We just really had to take ourselves somewhere else. You know, the furrow that we've been ploughing had really completely run its course.
Yeah.
And you know, I think people were expecting us to, or sort of. It was like a success in America was something that you had to achieve.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? It was like
that was the big pressure. I think the big pressure and the sort of, there's always a pressure. I've always found pressure in this group because we started ourselves as quite a thinking sort of pop group, really, and it was quite a relief to record things like Song 2 and actually have them as singles because it's just actually an expression of just sort of breaking free from that bogged down by some pseudo-intellectual BS. And actually just using your own energy as the thing and not your brain.
I remember watching you play. I don't know if it was the first time you played it. I think it might have been at the RDS Showgrounds in Dublin. And I remember standing quite near the front row of that huge field, normally full of tractors and shire horses. And and there was a row of kind of young girls in front of me. And you played that in Chinese Bombs. And there was an audible sound of jaws dropping. And what the hell is that? And was it kind of done to have that effect?
Not really. We thought that everyone had loved them. And we were just excited about creating this energy, and we really wanted to play it. I suppose because of what I said before, it's a great release to play something like that live, because it's not that hard to play. You're just relying on your mood, really, and nothing else.
It wasn't easy, but nothing is. No. When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need when I lie and I'm easy all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please, I need ya. When I was young, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need when I lie and I'm easy all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you.
Song 2 from Blur, who I'm talking with now. One of your recent big singles has been Tender.
Tender's got a very traditional structure. It's kind of like a hymn-like thing, so it is very conventional ultimately. But yeah, compared to what is on, what is current, I suppose it's different from that.
It's a bit more Levi's than than a lot of the charts thing, which is a bit like cyberware, isn't it? It's like a fresh old-fashioned breath
A
of
good
old-fashioned
old-fashioned.
breath, fresh air.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like. I panic when I start using more than 2 chords these days. I mean, occasionally a third one, but I used to use like 15 chords or so. Right, Modern Life is Rubbish. I was using a lot of chords.
Yeah.
Heck of a lot of chords. Songs just changed every bar into like diminished minor 7.
Yeah, one of my favourites.
I've just found myself gravitating to, in the music that I listen to and enjoy, to far simpler sort of expressive music. And I suppose you just go where your taste goes, don't you?
Tender is the night, lying by your side. Tender is the touch of someone that you love too much. Tender is the day the demons go away. Lord, I need to find someone who can heal my mind. Come on, come on, come on. Get through it. Come on, come on, come on. Love's the greatest thing. Come on, come on, come on. Get through it. Come on, come on, come on. Love's the greatest thing that we have. I'm waiting for that feeling. I'm waiting for that feeling. Waiting for that feeling to come. Oh my baby, oh my, oh my, oh my baby, oh my baby, oh I, oh my. Tender is the ghost I love the most, hiding from the sun, waiting for the night to come. Tender is my heart, I'm screwing up my life. Lord, I need to find someone who can heal my mind. Come on, come on, come on. Get through it. Come on, come on, come on. Love's the greatest thing. Come on, come on, come on. Get through it. Come on, come on, come on. Love's the greatest thing that we have. I'm waiting for that feeling. Waiting for that feeling. Waiting for that feeling to come. Baby, oh my baby, oh I, oh my, oh my baby, oh my baby, oh I, oh my.
Blether with Tender. You have, go on, let's talk about this. You have quite different viewpoints on one of the songs, don't you? Country House. Have you ever any nearer reaching a consensus?
I thought that song was great until we put umpire on it.
Yeah.
It was quite a rough little song, really, and then it was umpired out of and hooked out of existence. So it turned into me something that thuggish, thoughtless people would be into rather than anyone who liked music.
Yeah.
and the video did exactly the same. So I still hate it.
But you don't, Alex.
It's got 10 semitones in a row. That's why I'm proud of it.
I should have done something like that in it, so that would make me cheer up about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a very light-hearted. I mean, it's very considered and sort of contrived as a there's a sort of songwriting device fest going on there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a narrative, and you know, it's got everything's there on it. You know, brass and it's just sort of heaped up. But you know, it just became this enormous albatross, really. You know, there was all the silliness that was going on at the time. Let's have a record war.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so it's tainted by that. But it is fascinating that Noel Gallagher does live in a big house in the country.
City dweller, successful fella, thought to himself, oops, I've got a lot of money. Caught in a rat race, terminally. I'm a professional cynic, but my heart's not in it. I'm paying the price of living life at the limit. Caught up in the centuries, anxiety. Yes, it preys on him. Then drives him wrong. Lives in a house, very big house in the country. Watching afternoon repeats and the food he eats in the country. He takes a manner of pills and piles up analyst bills in the country. Oh, it's like an animal farm, that's a rural charm in the country. He's got morning glory and life's a different story. Everything's going Jack and Jory in touch with his own mortality. He's reading Mozart, looking bad prose. It's a helping hand that makes you feel wonderfully blind. Oh, it's a century's remedy for the faint at heart. Star drives syndrome. Lives in a house, a very big house in the country. He's got a fog in his chest, so he needs a lot of rest in the country. He doesn't drink, smoke, laugh, takes herbal baths in the country. There should come to no harm on the animal farm in the country. In the country. In the country. In the country. So he needs a lot of rest in the country. He doesn't drink, smoke, laugh, takes herbal baths in the country. This should come to no harm on the animal farm in the country. La la la. I wanna be.
Number 1 in the UK, many other places besides. Country House. More hits from Blur after the break. I'm Stuart McConey, talking to Blur. Coffee and TV's on there. No, that's to address this to you, Graham. That's I mean that's been a lot. It happened on the album before Coffee and TV, didn't it? But you had a song on the Blur album. But Coffee and TV. I mean, how easy was it to make that transition into you saying this is these are my things, my things I'd like to kind of stamp my identity on?
Well, it's only a bit of a stamp, really, because I didn't write that song. I wrote the lyrics and sang it, but because Damon, I was very fond of the backing track we created. Because it just reminded me a lot of good things, of some American good things, of some sort of light, that sort of rhythm that seemed very defunct.
Yeah.
And
Banana.
yeah, and people were suddenly using it again, and we were one of the people who started using it again. But it took me a long, long time in my top room, listening to it and wondering whether I could do it. It was doing it live, really, that was the cause of concern for me. But I did want to, perversely, but I was just a little bit reticent, because I love singing, but...
Yeah.
But I'm very careful not to... I don't like to spoil songs that I like by releasing them as singles, because I know inevitably I hate them after 6 months.
Do you, even with the best will in the world of wanting to be musically purist, if you like, about it, do you tend to look at singles and say, well, that has to be better than that because that's sold more copies? Do you end up getting sort of cricket scorekeeper mentality?
No, I don't really, because I don't think it's anything to do with how good things are.
One of many zeros kicked around.
lead vocal by Graham Coxon, Coffee and TV. Track 6, a major record for you, Park Life. That's I mean, you look through here, and there seems to be, like I say, several landmark records, and that's one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what one marketing people would say. This took them to another level.
Well, that's when we first thought about using guests, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. Well, Damon was doing the voice originally. We wanted to get Phil Daniels to tell a story over the Debt Collector, which ended up being a weird waltz instrumental. But then when we'd sort of thought of Phil Daniels, it just fitted perfectly for Park Life. I don't know. We've been watching Quadrophenia on the tour bus endlessly, and the Mike Leigh film that he's in. Meantime.
Yeah.
So I think we just wanted him on the record.
Yeah.
Like, where can we put him?
Yeah.
Oh, he can do Park Life. Be great. But yeah, I mean, it's a very odd song, really. It just sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, Damon presented it fairly fully formed, really, and it instantly sounded like a hit to me.
Yeah, we kind of linked football with pop music very, very directly. And I think that is probably the beginning of Britpop. If you're going to look at like where it really kicked off, it was with Park Life.
Yeah.
I mean, it started, and and a lot of people will sort of claim to start it, but that was where it really kicked off. That's where it all got out of hand.
Yes. Yeah. Great drumming as well, if you don't mind me saying so.
No, I don't mind you saying that at
Slight
all.
feeling of you couldn't give a toss to the drumming, which I think's admirable. Would that be fair enough to say?
I think when we made it, I mean, we were still a struggling indie band in danger of being dropped when we made that. So we were up against it really, and we really put everything into
exactly. Modern Life is Rubbish sold 15,000 records in Britain, and Park Life sold, and 1.7 million or whatever.
Yeah.
And was followed on by a lot of records that sold even more. But
that jump is a significant one. Yeah.
That was the one that made the jump for bands. Before a gold record had been a platinum record had been an enormous achievement. A gold record was like, you've got a career, but this one went, just took it out of there, and then it's just gone on. You've had Oasis and then Travis, and I mean, I wonder how far it can go. Because it's just the same. It's just the audience has got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time Travis were kind of selling a lot of records, something that had been started a long time ago had sort of, to people, who would never normally buy a record, but are suddenly 5 years later thought, oh, I think I'll get a guitar record. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing, and it reverberates for a long time.
Yeah. Park Life is that record, isn't it?
It is.
That's because before that you were an indie band, and after that you were just a band.
Well, after that it was cool for indie bands to sell records.
Of course it was, yeah.
And that record really did change what mainstream pop sounded like.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a bit pompous, but it did really. I mean,
It did.
Well, yeah, kind of from our angle, coming from our angle,
yeah, yeah.
And Robbie Williams pre-Park Life, well, he did sound completely different. I was going to say he would have sounded completely different, but I mean, he did.
No, it's true.
So
It's true. Oh, that's all.
So let's just sit back for a moment and reflect on that, shall we?
Confidence is a preference for the habitual voyeur of what is known as. A morning suit can be avoided if you take a route straight through what is known as. John's got brewer's fruit, he gets intimidated by the dirty pigeons. They love a bit of him. Who's that gut lord marching? You should cut down on your pork life, mate. Get some exercise.
All the people, so many people, and they all go hand in hand through their hard life. You know what I mean?
I get up when I want, except on Wednesdays when I get rudely awakened by the dustman. I put my trousers on, have a cup of tea, and I think about leaving the house. I feed the pigeons, I sometimes feed the sparrows too. It gives me a sense of enormous well-being. And then I'm happy for the rest of the day, safe in the knowledge there will always be a bit of my heart devoted to it. All the people, so many people, and they all go hand in hand through their park life. It's got nothing to do with your four-sprung dirge technique, you know. And it's not about you joggers who go round and round and round and round. All the people, so many people, and they all go hand in hand through their park life. All the people, so many people, and they all go hand in hand through their park life.
Park Life from, of course, Park Life. And the newest thing on here, recorded only a matter of weeks ago, is Music is My Radar, which will, maybe not, shock is not the right word, but for a few people it'll be another song to tender moment, won't it? Tender moment in the sense of like the song tender. In that it's going to be wow. There'll be a bit of a wow effect. And that's the effect you'll want, I guess.
Well, it's the effect we want when we're in the studio
Yeah.
together. You know, if we don't get that, it's just not happening. You know, we've got to go. I mean, when we were playing that is essentially a one-take track, and when we were playing it, we were just grinning and got that satanic look again, which is what you need. You know, that's what good pop music is about.
Sure.
It's about that irrational sense of euphoria when you're playing it, and it's just the best thing in the world. You know.
Is it as fun to play as it is to listen to?
Yeah.
Was it as fun?
We've only played it once.
I think it's a lot more fun. I think it's a lot more fun to listen to, because when, like you said, when you're in the midst of recording something, especially when we were all recording at the same time, we're so in amongst it, we can't quite really appreciate what is happening. We can only appreciate the vibe.
It's probably the biggest leap we made, because I feel it's like, it's the first time we've sounded as good as we can sound musically when we're playing. We sound like there's no production gone on in there really at all. That is how it was, and I think if you can get to that point, you're becoming half decent musicians, which is, I think, important.
Is that an indication of what might come in the second? Well, I'm saying the second phase of Blur's career, the 32nd phase of Blur's career.
I said that we've packed up everything from our one place into packing cases, and we're moving to a new premises now.
Right.
This album sees you metaphorically laden with suitcases, getting into a big van of tunes. So no, I mean, does that is that kind of, can we expect that? Does that hint at what you might be doing in the future? Even in method,
well,
if
that
not in
spirit,
sound.
definitely that spirit,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we only finished that yesterday, so
Yeah.
Unlikely to get a whole album full of songs that sound like, well, they
No.
are like that, but
No.
that kind of, what was great about that was the kind of freedom of it and the kind of anarchy of it.
Yeah.
And it's all on one chord, which is even better.
Yeah. To be glib about it, is that the way, looking over here, you've gone? It seems to me that's the way it's gone. It's been a movement towards
That one chord,
unstructured.
elusive
Yes, that one chord in a kind of Zen sense. Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, because it's if you can get something that is powerful out of the simplest possible process, then you're getting somewhere in life.
me serio. Really got my tongue on. Music in my radar. Really got me tongue on. Really got my radio. Really got me tongue on. Did it ever serio? Really got my bed down, turn my head down. Really got me champion, thought my grip on God. Bed down, dead on, all out really gone. Really got me dead now, some of my head. Really got me dancing, dancing in my head now, baby. Tony Allen, that's me. Tony Allen, that's me. Tony Allen gets bouncing right into. It really got me dancing. It really got me dancing. If I don't get myself all out eating, let down to the sun. It really got me dancing. It really got me dancing. You really got me dancing to myself.
Hot off the presses, Blur and Music Is My Radar. Well, that's about it. You've been listening for the last hour to Blur, talking about their new Best Of album. I've been Stuart McConey. Goodbye.